Um, 9 days. My bad. My bad. My bad, bro. Like, genuinely, my bad. My bad. But yo, what's good, Marvel God enthusiasts? Today we got the dark life of Nickelodeon's monster, Dan Schneider. So if y'all don't know, this dude is a weirdo. I ain't gonna lie to you. This dude has done some questionable shit. We're here to check that out. I hope I don't get age restricted or nothing along those terms. Yeah, check it out.
Dan Schneider shows iCarly and like Victorious and all that, and now it's like I'm literally working in like the front line spot, almost like with Dan Schneider and like the hands-on stuff he does.
That show Henry Danger sucked.
I have a new video for you because we talked a ton.
Like, guys, listen. Dan Schneider's only good shows, I think. What shows did he do, bro? Or did he produce? Drake and Josh for sure. iCarly. Did he do like all of that and shit? I've never seen that show before, but like, dude, that show Sam and Cat and shit. Oh, what the fuck? Where's my phone? Yeah, that show Sam and Cat. That show Game Shit. Oh my, get the fuck out, bro. Those shows sucked, dude. Like, anything Dan Schneider post 2012 sucked dick. Bro, horrible shows. Like, no wonder you got fired from Nickelodeon, bro. Like, what type of shit are you making, man?
About Dan Schneider on
my
my
bad.
But one thing we haven't talked about is his past and how this man became the creepy Nickelodeon producer that we know today. So we're going to take a deep dive into his past and try to figure out how this man became a monster. So let's talk about it. As you guys probably know by now, Dan Schneider is a creepy man who used to work at Nickelodeon on some of your favorite childhood TV shows.
Bro,
but now
where your hands going, dude? As like a 9-year-old. Oh my god, bro. Like, they really gotta expose these producers, directors that are fucking creeps, bro. Damn near pedophiles. I don't want to say that on YouTube because I don't know if that'll get age restricted or nothing. But come on, man. What the fuck?
Nowadays, he is known as a monster, and we're going to walk through how he grew up, how he became famous, and how he got the power in Hollywood to take advantage of all of these people. In this video, we're going to go through a timeline of his life, including where he grew up, what he has worked on in Hollywood, and we're even going to hear some...
Why am I only hearing it out 1 ear, bro? What's up? I'm finna break this headset, dude. I swear.
Some of the stories from some survivors who have encountered Dan before. There is a ton to get into, so let's start off at where it all began. Dan Schneider was born January 14th in 1966 in Memphis, Tennessee. His parents are named Harry and Carol Schneider, and he is actually the youngest of 4 children. He's got 3 older sisters, but honestly, I tried to do some research to figure out who they were or to find a picture, and there is nothing online. I don't know if this is done on purpose, but I find it very fishy that there is nothing about his childhood on the internet.
Damn,
but I do actually know that Dan Schneider was voted senior class president at his high school, White Station High School, where I guess he was liked. I mean, if you're senior class president, I guess you're likable. And I guess Dan was smart too, because after graduating high school, he went off to Harvard. This is actually where his father went to school, but Dan did not last long. He was only there for about 2 months before he dropped out. Dan has actually addressed this online because someone asked, why did he drop out of Harvard? And Dan wrote, I grew up as the funny kid in class, and that was pretty consistent throughout my childhood. I was never a great student. The thing I excelled at most in high school was that I would do plays. I moved to a new high school in Memphis my junior year. In my senior year, I won senior class president. Wow. I basically did that by getting on stage and giving a speech that got a lot of laughs. Because of that, I was on stage a lot. I would get on stage in front of people and do little skits and do funny stuff. I realized I really love performing. Which I guess lucky for Dan, shortly after he dropped out of school, he had a producer friend who offered him a small role in a film as a pizza boy. After that film, Dan's Hollywood career popped off. His first legit
Bro, why
role
does Dan
came in
Schneider look like Newman from Seinfeld, bro?
1984,
Man,
and it was a
that
short
just
one,
randomly...
but it was in an American teenage comedy
Never
called
mind, bro.
Making the Grade, and this was the first of many films that Dan featured in.
Making the Grade, the comedy that hits higher education below the belt.
In the following year, 1985, Dan actually featured in 2 more movies. One was called Hot Resort, which was whatever, but the other movie was called Better Off DEAD. And in this movie, Dan plays a nerdy character named Ricky, whose mom houses a foreign exchange student from France, and the whole time Dan is treating her like she is his girlfriend. This was prompted by his mother, and his character was extremely childlike in it, playing with toys and such. It's a dark comedy, and I get that Dan Schneider didn't write any of it, but once you get to know who he is, it's really odd to look back on that movie because he's playing a creeping on this young little French girl in the movie.
What the fuck?
But that's one of Dan's most popular roles, and he claims that he stopped on the street for that role more than anything else. Honestly, if I saw him in the street, I would be stopping him for some other reason, but we'll save it for...
Man, shut up, bro. I ain't gonna lie. Shut the fuck up, bro. Like, to be honest, like, if I seen Dan Schneider or EVP or some weirdo in the streets, I'm not gonna confront them or nothing. I'm gonna go along about my day, bro. What's up with y'all thinking you could just confront people? Talk about do some other things. Man, shut up.
For another day.
Fucking
then in
Sloan,
1986,
bro.
Dan starred in a show called Head of the Class, where he played Dennis Blunden. This was an extremely successful show, and it ran for 5 seasons. There were actually some funny clips I found online, and it was so weird to see Dan in them because I just see him as such a weird man. To see him as an actor was even weirder.
Janice, I'm gonna give you the money. I just need some more time.
Okay, 5 boxes of cookies. That's $10. If you don't have the money, just give me my cookies back.
I can't.
Those cookies were Girl Scout property.
Ooh, you're in trouble now, man. You're dealing with a very tough organization. Green Berets.
After that movie, he had a few more films come up in 1989, where he was in a film called Happy Together, and it was really hard to watch because there's this one scene where he grabs the girl and kisses her, and when I watched that, I was like, oh gosh, no. Could you imagine being that actress?
Gin joints in the world, you walked into mine. Kiss me.
Oh my God. Oh, can you believe this? Let's get out of here. Come on. There's a seat over there. That's so...
I really wish the internet was
fuck?
around back then and there was like Reddit or something, because I'm sure so many actors and actresses would have stories to tell about Dan. But moving on, in 1993, Dan Schneider then starred in a series called
Okay, now
Home
you're just
Free.
making accusations, bro. Like, he is a weirdo, don't get me wrong, but I don't know when he started that whole... I don't know. I don't know when he started being a weirdo, but... This dude's just making accusations.
And then in the TV Mommies. The following year, in
like, how do you know that,
1994,
bro?
he actually played Sean Eckert in the film about Tonya and Nancy and that whole scandal that went down with the skating. I can't believe that story is still a thing, but he was involved in the movie. This same year, Dan started making the switch from being the actor to being the writer and the producer on the back end of things. He started writing that same year, 1994, on the show All That, which was a huge success for Nickelodeon. Around the same time, he met his wife Lisa, which if you have not seen my video about Lisa Lillian, aka Hungry Girl, definitely go watch it right now, but we'll talk about her in a minute. Then 1999 comes around, and the Amanda Show is poppin'. This is like Dan's baby.
What the fuck?
The Amanda Show is his own. He's fully producing it, and
so
Amanda
he did produce
on
that one show. Bro, what is this dude's obsession with feet? I get people have their fetishes, bro, but with kids, that's fucking weird. That's not even weird. That's bordering the P word.
Alongside him.
Oh, okay, bro, we're skipping.
To Amanda,
What the
and
fuck?
we've talked about that in a previous
What the
video,
fuck?
but the
Ah,
show
fuck,
was
my bad,
very
my bad.
successful. Moving on to 2001, that's when Dan Schneider started getting in a little bit of trouble. If you guys don't know who Brian Peck is, he is a disgusting monster who worked as the dialogue coach for
a fucking weirdo
with Dan Schneider. This man got in big trouble for doing some foul things to children on that show, which is really hard to talk about. And when we looked into Brian a little bit deeper, we found out that he was actually involved in this swimming pool situation. So you guys remember the swimming pool camps that Dan Schneider and Brian Peck would host? Well, this was going on back in 2001, 2002, and little kids were gathering at Hollywood homes with pools to hang out with Dan Schneider and Brian Peck with a hope in their heart to be the next biggest thing in Hollywood.
What the fuck,
The manipulation is insane, and someone actually came out and spoke about their experiences going to one of these camps.
And be like, oh, we'll just take care of the kids. No adults need to come over. Whoa. So he was having pool parties.
That's weird.
With these kids that were on the shows without any kind of adult supervision going on. What? He was just he's just a sick dude.
Brian was charged in 2002 with what he did, but then shortly after serving jail time, he went to work for another kids network, Disney, on Sweet Life of Zack and Cody. And obviously that's its own other story, and we need to talk about Disney and their problematic people. But let's talk a little bit more about Dan. Because at the same time that Brian was getting in trouble for all of these things he did on all of that, Dan was still working in Hollywood. In 2002, he released What I Like About You, and in the same year, he released Big Fat Liar, which was a huge hit. I remember that movie. It was also a big year for Dan's love life because he got married to his wife Lisa, who we all know now as Hungry Girl, and she actually is quite problematic. One thing I want to bring up that I didn't bring up in the previous video on her was the fact that she actually was the main person running the whole iCarly in Japan. So you guys may remember this movie called I Go to Japan, and it was a Nickelodeon special that Lisa had a big role in, and iCarly was the main character. She pretty much went to Japan, but in this film, it was really inappropriate and actually very offensive to Japanese people.
How?
I can't use the R word, but I would to describe it because what she did with this film was gross and it would not go down nowadays. So that's a quick overview of his wife. And I also don't
I'll have to see the movie, but come on, bro, stop being soft, man. That's something I ain't gonna deal with, bro. We don't have no room for the P word or nothing like that. We don't deal with shit over here at the Marvin Garden community, you know what I'm saying? But come on, man, jokes about races, it's not always racist, dude. It's not. Stop being soft, Sloan. I ain't gonna lie. Stop being soft, bro. That shit piss me off, bro. Stop being soft, bro. That's what's wrong with the society today. Y'all are soft.
Be with Dan Schneider, but it makes me think that she's just as bad as he is. The following year, 2003, is when Dan Schneider created his own company, Schneider's Bakery. It was actually named after his father's business back in Tennessee, but there is a bakery in Ohio with the same name. So, not to get confused, the Schneider's Bakery in Ohio is not owned or related to Dan Schneider at all, so you can go and eat there in peace. But Dan Schneider's production company is huge.
This dude's pissing me off. Bro, what does it matter if it's owned by the Schneiders, dude? If I'm going to eat somewhere, I'm going to eat somewhere, bro. I don't give a fuck. If it's a racist owner, I don't give a shit. If I'm hungry, I'm hungry, bitch. The fuck you? I don't give a shit, bro. Y'all could call me lame. I don't give a fuck, bro. If I'm hungry, I'm eating wherever. I don't give a shit. Real talk.
With nearly 600
Dude, it's pissing me off, bro. I ain't gonna lie.
Dan Schneider and his production team at Schneider's Bakery are the breadwinners behind some of Nickelodeon's favorite TV programs. Since 2003, Dan Schneider and his corrupt crew of the industry's best musicians, writers, producers, etc. have been creating kid TV shows for you guys to enjoy and grow up on. I almost forgot to mention that in 2004, that's when Drake and Josh came out, which is one of the staple shows that I grew up watching and that Dan Schneider is really well known for. There are some feet pictures and references here and there as far as Drake and Josh, but it looks like Drake Bell and Josh have moved on. But if you guys didn't know, Drake Bell is actually Drake Campañana now, which is Spanish for Bell because he became Mexican. He went to Mexico and got a Mexican ID, and now he is speaking Spanish. It's a whole thing. If you haven't seen my video on it, definitely go check it out after this.
What's going on with that dude?
One of Dan's most memorable shows is Zoey 101, which aired in 2005, and you guys know how that ended. It was extremely messy, and Zoey, aka Jamie Lynn, got pregnant. A lot of people believe at this point in 2007, 2008 that Dan Schneider got her pregnant. There are tons of pictures online that show that Jamie Lynn's daughter kind of looks like Dan. And as you guys can see in this picture, their eyebrows, their mouths, their faces kind of look alike to me. But I was thinking about doing a full video about this situation because there is so much to unpack here, and I truly believe that Dan Schneider had some weird connection relationships back on Zoey 101. That whole set was extremely toxic. I mean, we heard from Alexa Nichols herself that it was horrible, and I would have hated to be a child actor in that situation. Moving on to 2007, Dan Schneider created iCarly, which was a major hit for Nickelodeon. This show has some of the worst foot references, and I know that the grown adults on set at iCarly knew that this had to be inappropriate. I mean, you guys know how Jeanette McCurdy feels about Dan Schneider, and I definitely believe that he did some awful things to everyone on set. Jeanette McCurdy actually recently made a TikTok where she was referring to some of the news, I believe, around Dan Schneider, because a lot of people are talking about Dan Schneider again, things are resurfacing, and she is feeling a little bit triggered by it all. I mean, can you blame her? Because this man used to obsess about her feet, post pictures about her toes on the internet, ask fans to identify her feet, and then confirms it on the internet. It's just all way too weird for me, and there's a reason why Jeanette does not like Dan. But it does seem like Miranda actually likes Dan. He actually commented on this picture of Miranda where she put a foot on her head for whatever reason, and he wrote, "Oh my gosh, I thought I loved the bow, but I like your foot even more." What an odd thing to say about this picture. Like, why would he like the feet and the hair? But he's just obsessed with feet. But that didn't scare Miranda from coming back for an iCarly revival, which I believe is supposed to come out this year, 2021. But in 2007,
what do y'all think about that show? I have not watched that. I don't know what it's about. I don't know. I don't think I'll watch it, but who knows? Do y'all want me to review the show? I do reviews, so I mean, I might. I don't know.
Working on
does look interesting to me,
Zoey
but
101,
I don't know.
There was an incident that went down. We talked about this on my channel in the past, but you guys know that there is a woman who came out and spoke about her experiences with Dan. She shared that she was part of a casting call that got extremely inappropriate and barefoot, and it was really odd. This actually forced the actress out of acting, and she didn't want to be part of the industry anymore.
We would go on auditions just at different places, and eventually I got a manager and an agent. And my agent contacted me and my family about possibly getting a good Nickelodeon gig. I personally, at the time, I watched a ton of Nickelodeon, and I was very immersed in that lifestyle, so I wanted to pursue it. Audition call listing, they did mention, like, you know, wear something cute, like wear spaghetti straps or a skirt or, you know, whatever. And my mom, when she told me later on that whenever she saw things like that, she thought that it was a little uncomfortable for people to be telling kids what to wear.
How old were you at the time?
15, 14 years old. Once about 40 kids were selected, we were then told to take off our shoes and that we were each going to go into a room to show the producer, who is Dan Schneider, the tapes to see who we would want on the show. And of course, you know, we always ask, like, oh, what do we have to do? Like, what would you like us to be doing once we're in there? And my agent told me, he's like, it's going to be like a...
I wonder why no one's, like, come out, like, and said anything about the... Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, everyone... Like, when it comes to Dan Schneider, they remain anonymous. Like this girl right here. Bro, I'm thinking the reason why is Dan Schneider has a lot of power in the industry, possibly. And he could get them shut down easily. Easily, he could ruin their life. That's what I'm thinking, bro. That motherfucker probably has a lot of industry power, to be honest with you. The industry's fucked up, man.
He's like, you gotta...
Like, even me, bro. I'm talking about Dan Schneider. They could get me gone, bro. If I'm not on YouTube, if my channel gets terminated, then you know it's something to do with that.
Go off your shoes, just like run around in front of the camera, you know, talk about how much you love being barefoot. And at the time,
What the
even,
fuck?
you know, it was like, okay, that's weird, but I didn't think anything of it because I was still young.
Right.
And then when I saw other kids doing it, like their parents were like, take your shoes off, like we're going in, like this is it, this is your thing. You know, it was all the kids that were wearing like the short shorts, like the, you know, spaghetti strap tank tops, you know, things that were a little more open and less reserved.
Okay,
Bro,
so taking it back to
that dude
2010,
Dan Schneider's a fucking creep, bro. What the
that's
fuck?
when Victorious
what the
came
fuck?
out. And honestly, I can't talk too much about Victorious because you guys know I got in trouble recently. But anyways,
See, get you gone, bro.
Dan was very active on Twitter. He shared this
Get you gone, bro.
where he wrote, "Little Ariana Grande from Victorious smiles at one of her co-stars' feet. But whose foot is it?" Like, ugh, God. Like, little Ariana Grande stares at feet. Why is that so exciting for him? And then there's another tweet that he tweeted out in this same year, 2010. "Toes, similar to fingers, but not nearly as good.
What?
Who agrees?" I'm sorry, Dan, but I
Dan, bro,
disagree.
get off. Someone
But as
take
we
this
all
dude's
know,
phone, bro.
Dan is
I know
known for his
that's back in 2010, but someone please take this dude's phone, bro. What the fuck are you tweeting, dude?
creepy tweets.
Who let this dude cook?
Like this one. Fact, a typical person blindfolded can guess another person's gender simply by smelling their breath. This person quote retweeted it and wrote, "Why is Dan Schneider breathing on blindfolded people?" Good question.
Ugh.
And there are so many
what's
other
wrong?
foul tweets from Dan Schneider out there.
What's
but a
wrong
lot
with
of
this
them have been
dude?
deleted because he thought that, you know, removing them from the internet would make us all forget about the gross things he has done. But obviously, it's not that simple. Before we get to Sam and Kat, we have to talk about all the things that went down in 2012 because there is so much to unpack here. While Dan was working with a bunch of children on set, there were people in the industry who were getting in trouble for what they were doing. In 2012, Martin West, a talent agent for Nickelodeon and Disney, got in really big trouble for doing some things with a 14-year-old, and obviously that's not allowed. So he got in big trouble there. So they were investigating, but I don't know why they didn't look into Dan Schneider.
Fuck?
I mean, they were even going for the production assistants. This one man named Jason Michael Hurdy actually got in pretty big trouble after bringing young girls on set at Nickelodeon, and then once they were there on set in his possession, he did whatever he wanted to with them. So these gross men were getting in trouble in 2012, but I guess Dan Schneider was just overlooked because he is so powerful. Something that I want to mention, and it actually bothers me, is that in my videos about Dan Schneider, we have focused on a lot of the big stars, a lot of the big celebrities and what they've gone through. But a lot of the times, the big celebrities aren't the ones who were actually really hurt by this man. It's the ones you don't know their names. It's the smaller stars who had these small interactions with him that changed their lives. There is one person who reached out to me with her story about Dan, and I actually pre-recorded this part, so I'm going to go ahead and play it for you guys, and I want you to hear how manipulative Dan was in this situation. And even though it's not the craziest story, it's pretty crazy, and it reminds me that this little girl could be one in hundreds of thousands that he has gotten to. So at this time, she was only 9 years old, walking through Hollywood, and her mother was pointing out things to her as she approaches the Hollywood Walk of Fame. And then there's this man walking closely behind them. We weren't really bothered by it because it's Hollywood and there's a lot of people there. So we continue walking, and he eventually says something to me along the lines of, "Hey, I like those shoes. I wish they made them in my size." They were bright yellow Reebok shoes, and I just turned around and said, "Thank you, my mother bought them for me." He then says hello to my mother, and she says hello back. Nothing was said after that, and me and my mother walked into a nearby 7-Eleven, and he follows behind us.
Bro!
He definitely seemed distant when he spoke,
What's wrong with this
if that
dude?
makes sense.
You're going up to strangers, fucking... Oh, bro. And I don't know if this story's real, but who knows?
He taps my mother's shoulder while I'm at the Slurpee station making a drink. They begin talking, and he pulls his wallet out and shows something to my mother. I say assume because I was away from my mother, and she refuses to talk to me about it. So I only know what I seen at that moment.
What?
But I hear her voice raise in excitement as she talks to him. He hands her a business card and then the conversation ends. Later on, my mother and I were back in the car. She says tomorrow we're going to Nickelodeon Studios. I asked her why, and she said I might be able to get a role on one of their shows as a supporting character. I get excited because I love Nick, so I was willing. So the next day comes around and my mother is driving to an address that Dan had given her over a previous phone call. We approached the studio on Sunset where Dan and one of his other colleagues were standing outside. Me and my mother park and they lead us on a tour through the studio. There were lots of empty seats. I believe it was because it was a weekend. He asked me what my favorite show was, which was iCarly, like every other kid at the time. This next part is where the first red flag came in about the situation. He took us to the set where they filmed iCarly. He took us to the iCarly bedroom. He said I could look around while he stood and talked to his colleague, who left after their conversation was ended. While he was talking to his colleague, my mother was taking pictures of me around the room. When his colleague left, Dan noticed the pictures he was taking and became enraged. He began going on about how he was giving me a life-changing opportunity and that we were taking advantage. He threatened to sue us and ruin my life as a child actor if the photos were not deleted. So my mother deleted them. She felt very visibly uneasy, and then Dan tried to comfort her and apologize for his inappropriate actions. We continued to walk through the studio, and he takes us over to a dressing room. Very excited, he grabs
Take this
a
with a
piece
grain of
paper
salt,
and asked
y'all.
me to
This could
stop.
be a fake story too. Like, there's people that try and make false stories, but I don't know.
My name. I spelled it, and he took the paper and tagged it on the door, saying, "One day this could be your room." And then I obviously got really excited. So we enter the room and we began talking, and he says that he would want me to become the half-sister of Charlotte on Henry Danger, whose role on the show would depend on how fans responded to her. He said that I would have a small part in the pilot special and that we would talk about it in later episodes. I've never personally watched the show because of this situation, so I don't know if that idea was eventually scrapped, but he began conducting an interview type of conversation. Then he asked me to recite lines in different emotions. So one of the ones I remember was to say, "Oh my God, why would you say that?" And he asked me to say it dramatically and sad or depressed, then happy and giggly. After we finished reciting, he asked my mom to step out of the room to see how I would act without her. So she stepped out and he asked me to recite the lines, which I did. He then started acting strangely when he heard my mother answer a phone call. He asked me to put on the high heels and then walk around. Remember, she's only 9 years old at this time.
What the fuck?
The heels he handed me were a size too big, and then he asked me to step into another room and put a dress on over my clothing. And then I began to feel strangely, so I took the heels off and I slipped my shoes back on. I asked if I can go to the restroom, and he asked if I remembered where it was. I said yes, and I left the room. I pulled the door closed, and I ran to my mother. I whispered to her what was going on, and we ran out that studio and never spoke of it again. About 10 minutes later, he began to call her, and she blocked him. We never talked to him or spoke about it after that one conversation in the car. He is a bad man and should be in prison.
Yeah, guys, take this with a grain of salt. I don't know how real that is.
So obviously that was a lot, and if you guys ever have any story you want to share with me, you can reach out to me on Instagram at SL04N or my email
That
at
sounds kind of, I don't know.
Obviously, that's alleged,
that doesn't
and
sound too
like,
real.
I
bro.
wasn't there, but I
you.
definitely believe that it went down
shit.
and that Dan Schneider put her in a really uncomfortable situation. It reminds me of the previous stories we talked about on my channel, and that these little girls are put in these situations and honestly scared out of the industry because of it.
Oh,
but let's continue, because in 2013, that's when Sam and Cat came out, and this is a TV show with Jeanette McCurdy and
that shit was
Jeanette
so
McCurdy
stupid.
and Ariana Grande. Hopefully I'm saying
They only
that
had
right.
one
Ariana,
season.
Ariana Grande. This show also had a lot of inappropriate references, but one thing that we can never forget is this tweet sent out on September 13th, 2013, where I'm sure Dan instructed someone to post this tweet encouraging young kids to take a picture of their feet and then post it on Twitter. So many kids ended up actually doing it, and it's so gross to look online and see all of this, because it's obviously just there for Dan to look at and to enjoy for his own pleasure and his fantasies. Or the same year, he also replied to this person who wrote his name in the sand, and then he replied and said, "That's awesome, thanks. I hope you don't have too much sand between your toes now." Like, oh god, can you imagine?
Why does
if
he...
that was my daughter, like, tweeting that out, I would see that tweet from the producer and then, like, remove her phone.
What is his...
This behavior isn't okay.
What is his thing about feet, bro? He can't stop mentioning it.
Schneider should not be using his power and his platform to solicit photos of children's feet because that's what he enjoys.
Fuck.
You guys need to recognize how wrong that is, and to use your, like, public platform to recruit this type of thing. Like, I feel like that should be a crime in itself. Like, these are kids, Dan. Do not go asking them for pictures of their feet. Like, ew, god, and they don't even know better. I'm sure there are some kids who have grown up since that point and they've watched these videos and they're like, oh gosh, I can't believe I was a part of that. Sam and Cat did not last long. It was only there for 1 season, but Dan Schneider was quickly back to work with a new show called Henry Danger. This show has been on for 5 seasons, and its last episode was last March 2020. This show definitely had its moments, but it wasn't all too bad. But one post I want to share is from Dan Schneider on Facebook, and it's a little like infographic where they ask their fans, would you rather give Charlotte's uncle Roscoe a long foot massage, or hand wash and comb Gooch's mustache, which both of those options sound horrible.
What the fuck?
First off, the foot option, like, who wants to go and rub anyone's uncle's foot? Like, to me, he's trying to normalize that action. It's like, no kid should think that that is normal at all. And he's referring to Mr. Gooch, who is a really gross character, and obviously they are referring to male body parts when they talk about Mr. Gooch, and he runs a place called Junk and Stuff, which they're joking about, you know, stuff, and it's really, like, it's so clear
that's what
that
it
it's
is.
Gross, and I don't know why they would want to include it. It's like, not really that funny. Like, oh, Mr. Gooch, like, what? And they falsely claimed that this was TV's #1 kids comedy show. That is not true at all. If you look back at the numbers during that time, they were far from #1, but they wanted to make themselves seem that way. And then there's one more tweet that they shared where they wrote, would you rather give Jasper a foot massage or eat a bowl of hair soup?
What is up with
Which,
these?
again, neither and neither. But why are they doing all these, like, foot massages? And you can even see that the girl was doing it in this clip, so I guess it actually went down. And I feel really bad for that little girl, because who wants to be over here rubbing some grown man's feet? Like, I would pull my daughter out immediately. She is not
like,
here
I don't
to
understand
do
why
As
these
I was
motherfuckers have to
researching
keep
this
on
show,
mentioning
I actually found
feet.
a really gross clip where they were squeezing a pimple, and if you are really grossed out by this stuff, then please turn away for a second.
Okay, bro.
It was so gross, but maybe there's a good reason why they were trying to make themselves seem like the #1 kids comedy. Because Dan's next show, Game Shakers, in 2015, is the worst show that Nickelodeon has ever put out before. That's not even my personal judgment. It's literally ranked the worst show ever produced, like, ever. I was doing some research on this show, and the reviews I found are crazy. This person said pure agony, completely inappropriate. Wow, yeah, there are some bad scenes, just bad.
Yeah, that show sucks, bro.
So even
that was Dan's worst show by far. Like, what the fuck were y'all thinking making that dumbass shit, bro? That was the worst Nickelodeon show I think I've ever seen.
Like it. This show sucks. Every single review is
1
terrible
star
for this TV show.
It's exactly what it
makes sense
is.
Because it's pretty bad. I mean, it's inappropriate. It's gross. I saw some horrible things about it being like, you know, against trans people and things like that. I actually found one clip where the little kid was, like, using his feet to peel an orange, and it was so gross. So that show absolutely sucks, and there's a reason why it was only around for 3 seasons, and after that, it was gone. At this point, Dan's career was starting to wind down.
How did it get 3 seasons? Even Sam and Cat was better than that show, bro. And Sam and Cat only got 1 season.
Before they let go of him, in 2017, they actually fired Chris Savino, who created Loud House for Nickelodeon. And the reason why he was fired was because he was doing things to multiple women, bothering them, and obviously that's not allowed. So Nickelodeon
leave the women alone, fam.
And then comes 2018, when Dan Schneider was let go by Nickelodeon with $7 million to walk away with, because after years of accusations...
I'm putting y'all dudes on game. Keep your hands to yourself, bro. Stop trying to touch on women that don't even know you. Stop touching on kids. It's weird, bro. If you're in the industry, don't do that. Don't. It's weird. You're gonna probably fuck up their lives, man. Don't do that.
And
you could get yourself in trouble.
Nickelodeon did not recognize him as a criminal, but as one of their heroes. So they let him walk free. But at the same time, John Kay, who I can't even say his last name, was getting in a ton of trouble. The creator of the Ren and Stimpy show was accused of doing bad things by two girls who were obviously underage.
That show was funny as fuck, I ain't gonna lie.
Was in big trouble back in 2018 when the news broke. But at the same time, literally the same time, because it was the same week that this man was getting in trouble, Dan Schneider was being let go. You could see the difference in their treatment because Dan was once again handed $7 million and John Kay was sentenced to go to jail. So there's definitely a lack of accountability when it comes to this situation. And I really wish that Nickelodeon would recognize their wrongdoing and actually investigate and hold this man accountable for the years of accusations that have come up. You guys may remember the day after Dan was let go by Nickelodeon, Amanda Bynes actually submitted a little gossip piece to Entity Lawyer, and in this piece she writes, "Dan did it." You may not see what I'm referring to, but on the second line it says, "Thank you for your ongoing support. I don't know how any of these men sleep at night," and as you guys can see, D-A-N, and then moving on to the following line, D-I-D, and then I-T. Dan did it. We've talked about that post in a previous video, but I definitely believe that Amanda is referring to some of the horrible things that he was being accused of.
Oh yeah, that girl is in a whole ass fucking, what's it called? Shit, what's it called, bro? Where your parents have like full control of your money and shit. I forgot what it's called, bro.
And that's why Nickelodeon let him go. Nowadays, Dan has been really low-key and off of the radar. There are no pictures of him in public. There are no TV shows coming out with him working on them. If you go to his social media, you'll actually see that his Instagram is really active. He posts a lot of happy birthday posts. As you guys can see, he said happy birthday to Frankie Grande, who was on Henry Danger, and oh god, remember the pimple scene? He was being like splatted out, like, oh god, I would not forgive you.
Come on, bro.
Dan's Twitter is also still active, but he's not posting on it because people on Twitter are a lot more mean to Dan than people on Instagram, because if you go look at Dan's most recent tweets, the replies are savage. But I want to read his bio to you guys because it is the same on Twitter and on Instagram, and it says creates/acts in movies, TV shows, Victorious, Drake and Josh, iCarly, Zoe 101, Big Fat Liar, etc. And then he ends it with invented spaghetti tacos. You might be asking, what is a spaghetti taco? Well, it's actually a recipe online, but if you go look at the Urban Dictionary definition of it, it's actually really gross and disgusting.
That looks
and
disgusting,
it makes me think
bro.
that Dan is thinking of the other definition when he writes that. But I want to hear what you guys think in the comments below.
What other definition?
Is Dan Schneider the creep you thought he was? What do you think about his past?
Okay, bro, and then we got one more video to watch. Another Dan Schneider
Nobody
video.
talks about pedophilia.
It's the big secret.
Whoa, come on, bro. Don't get me
And it's widespread?
Oh, yeah. I was surrounded by them when I was 14 years old. Surrounded. Literally. Didn't even know it. It wasn't until I was old enough to realize what they were and what they wanted and what they were about.
Look at this dude, bro. He's sitting in a fucking hot tub with
types of people that were surrounding me till I went, oh my god, they were everywhere.
What's
like
wrong
vultures.
with these people?
If you grew up watching Nickelodeon, then you may have heard of Dan Schneider.
Bro, literally, literally the Nickelodeon logo, old logo is a fucking foot. What is up with feet in Nickelodeon, bro? What the fuck? What is wrong with y'all?
He was responsible for many of its hit shows during the 90s and 2000s, such as The Amanda Show, iCarly, and my personal favorite, Drake and Josh.
Hell yeah.
In recent
I can
years,
still watch Drake
Dan has
and
been
Josh
brought
and
into
have a good ass
controversy
time,
due to
you know what I'm
rumors
saying?
about
Great
abusive
show.
and possibly sexual behaviors
What
between
the
him and his
fuck?
young female co-stars. None of these rumors were grounded with any hard evidence, and most people dismissed it.
These are all in kids shows?
Until
How did
March
that shit
26,
slide, bro?
2018, when Nickelodeon announced that they will be parting ways with Dan Schneider.
Good.
The
You
news
ain't
surprised
shitty-ass
many people.
TV
Why would
shows at the
Nickelodeon
end
fire
there.
one of its biggest producers seemingly out of nowhere? Were they aware of all the rumors and
I'm not
decided...
gonna lie, excluding all the shit he's done, I would have fired him anyway, because, bro, Game Shakers fucking sucked, dude. That shit was so bad. Like, why? The show was so bad.
finally do something about it? What is the Dan Schneider conspiracy?
fucking creep. I don't. Yeah.
Okay, I'm Carly.
I'm Sam.
And we like to draw families on our toes.
Observe.
Bro.
Okay, and that completes our 5-part series on toes with froze.
Now, I'm gonna turn off the camera using only the remote.
Bro,
is that
okay,
he has a thing for feet and uses his shows and their following to satisfy this fetish. You may be thinking, well, maybe he just finds feet and toes to be funny. And to be honest, some of the scenes by themselves are rather harmless and something that I can imagine on other shows. However, it's undeniable that there are a large number of feet-related puns and barefoot scenes in the shows.
Fuck,
Too many to list here.
What is this?
Outside of television, there are some weird examples, however. In Victorious, Tori hosts an online show called Tori Takes Requests, where viewers can ask her to do all sorts of random things. In the very first episode, Tori gets a request to have ketchup poured all over her feet, and then she does a little dance at the end. In another online show called Cat's Random Thoughts, there's a moment in the first episode where she sticks her big toe in her mouth. Dude, I didn't really watch Victorious growing up, so I don't know if these played on television, but I do know that they were extras on theslab.com, a fictional in-universe website. Now, here is where things get even more unusual. On September 13th, 2013, the Sam and Cat Twitter page asked its followers to take a picture of their feet with the hashtag Sam and Cat Saturday.
We just saw this on the Sloan video.
And a number of people did. This is just one of many now infamous feet-related tweets from Dan Schneider and his shows, but this is the most well-known. You can find several if you look around long enough.
Bro,
during the same year, there was a post on Reddit about how Dan Schneider is the most successful writer / TV executive in children's television for the last 30 years.
Bro, you should have put all that like acting and shit to good. You know what I'm saying? Not making these feet type shit. Like, what is wrong with you, dude? And then harassing kids. Like, come on, dude. You could have done way better. And now you're just gonna be known as a fucking creep. Like, not enough people talk about Dan Schneider. I don't see enough people talking about this dude, to be honest. Like, I'm not the type to be like, oh, cancel this guy, but come on, bro. But, like, if I saw Dan Schneider in the streets, I wouldn't say nothing, because, like, I don't know this dude in real life, so I ain't gonna say nothing. You know what I'm saying? Like, it pissed me off when y'all are like, oh, I would fight this and this. Like, bro, shut the fuck up. You don't even know this dude. Stop acting like you'll fight it. Like, Sloan, bro, you're not gonna fight it, bro.
A user commented,
you don't even know him.
I grew up in LA and was an extra on the Amanda Show a few times. He, being Dan Schneider, paid me $100 once just to tickle my feet. The user further elaborated. To make a weird story short, in between takes,
Dan, like I said, take these stories with a grain of salt, cause you don't know if it's people capping. Like, you don't know. I'm not trying to shut people's stories down or nothing like that. But you gotta take shit like this with a grain of salt, because not all of it could be real.
Asked me if I was ticklish, and I said no.
Like that iCarly, that girl went on the set. That seems fake to me. I don't know. Something about it. Like, it doesn't seem real, but I don't know.
Then he bet me $100 he could make me ticklish. I was expecting him to reach over and tickle me under my arm or something like that, but he led me to his office. I basically got paid to receive a foot massage and a lot of compliments.
Bro, come on.
The commenter later deleted his or her account. It's unknown who this person is, how old he or she was, or if this person was even telling the truth.
Yeah, like I said, take it with a grain of salt. You don't know.
Revenge of the Sis have done a number of videos about Dan Schneider, and during one of their podcasts, they received a call from an anonymous source stating that she went to an audition for one of Dan Schneider's shows. The call was quite lengthy, so for time's sake, I'll be playing a portion of what she had to say. The full podcast will be available below.
So in 1997, I was discovered in a mall, basically we would go on auditions just to different places, and eventually I got a manager and an agent who would send me on audition calls for, like little things like commercials and everything. And then as I started growing in my career, in 2007, my agent contacted me and my family about possibly getting a good Nickelodeon gig. And we flew out to LA for this audition. And when we got there, it was a bunch of kids, probably like 200 kids. And then these random agents hand-selected specific kids that they liked or, showed some charisma. And then once about 40 kids were selected, we were then told to take off our shoes and that we were each going to go into a room to show the producer, who is Dan Schneider, the tapes to see who we would want on the show. And of course, we always ask, like, oh, what do we have to do? Like, what would you like us to be doing once we're in there? And my agent told me, he's like, it's going to be like he's like, you got to just take off your shoes, just like run around in front of the camera, talk about how much you love being barefoot. And at the time, even, it was like,
yeah, we just saw this.
Okay, that's weird, but I didn't think anything of it because I was still young.
Right.
My mom kind of looked around and was like, this is wrong. There's just something really wrong about this.
Because this person's mother decided to take her out of the audition.
That's good.
She's been blacklisted from the business.
See, bro? Once you say shit about these higher ups, bro, they'll blacklist you. Don't be surprised if I'm out of here. That YouTube might get me gone, bro. Real talk.
Hey, Dan Schneider. I know you're watching my Vine. Do you like my Vine? Fine. Look what you've done to me.
There are a number of photos circulating the internet of Dan Schneider being a bit too touchy with his young child actors, some of which are
weird.
A bit more uncomfortable to look at than others.
Bro, come on, man.
There are stories of him inviting young actresses into his office and hosting pool parties during auditions.
So what would happen is that your parents would send you to sort of like this camp. It was basic acting classes, and it was an opportunity for the kids to get discovered. And interestingly enough, most of the kids got discovered by the pool. They had a pool, they had like tennis courts, and I believe like it was like Megan Fox and other female and Hillary Duff was another one who got discovered there at the pool. And they would push you to do pool activities because they said that's where you have the highest chance of getting discovered.
Now, what was the age range of the people that went to these at these camps?
The age ranges, the ones that I was familiar with, are ages 13 to 22.
In an article by Kira Davis from Red State, she writes, I happened to be chatting with a former child actor over a week ago. We were discussing Weinstein, and she told me that in her youth, she worked on one of Schneider's shows.
I had to go
very
take
briefly.
an ID picture, but I'm going to do that shit Friday, bro. I don't want to do it today.
She told me, my friend was molested by that man on set. Everyone
on set?
Knew it. No one said a word.
Oh, okay, bro. I don't. Shit.
In 2004, actor and producer Brian Peck was convicted of several accounts of lewd acts towards a minor and was sentenced to 16 months.
How'd he get a job after that, bro?
Court documents reveal that several of these acts involved attempted sodomy of a person under 16, sexual penetration by foreign object, and oral copulation by anesthesia or controlled substance, just to name a few. The victim has remained anonymous to protect his or her career, but according to reports, the child actor was involved in The Amanda Show. After serving a sentence, Peck was released from prison and went straight back to working on kids shows, such as The Sweet Life of Zack and Cody. This is because, although he is prohibited from direct contact with children, that technically doesn't mean he's not allowed to work on shows that involve children.
I wonder where I'd wear this.
Wear it to a fruit stand. You look like a lime.
So what does this have to do with Dan Schneider? Well, in a 2002 article titled Groomed to Be All That, it is revealed that Dan Schneider and Brian Peck would host comedy boot camps for Nickelodeon child stars, where they were allegedly separated from their parents.
That's weird.
Really think about that for a bit. The guy that held boot camps for children was convicted and sentenced 2 years later for committing sexual acts with children, and then went straight back to working on children's shows. When asked if he had anything to say to the child he abused, Peck responded with, I don't have any comment on it. I really don't. And this is the guy that Dan Schneider worked with for years. According to Deadline.com, Dan Schneider was known for having temper issues. During a meeting with Nickelodeon executives, Dan was told that his show Game Shakers would not be renewed for a 4th season, leaving it on a cliffhanger ending. It was also reported that Nickelodeon's newest show, Cousins for Life, would move into the same studio that all of Schneider's shows were exclusively produced for years, and that Dan wasn't so happy about having to share space now. Perhaps the most absurd allegation towards Dan Schneider is that he is the true father of Jamie Lynn Spears' daughter. Yeah, this is a little silly, but it does lead into something interesting, so I'm going to bring it up for educational purposes, just so you guys know. Jamie Lynn Spears, the star of Zoe 101, infamously got pregnant at 16 years old, which resulted in the cancellation of the show.
Fuck.
Crazy Days and Nights is an online gossiping website ran by an anonymous blogger known as NT, a self-proclaimed dialed-in entertainment lawyer.
I will be honest, I never watched that show. I don't know if it's good or not.
Supposedly, NT was able to predict certain scandals involving big-name celebrities, such as Weinstein and Kevin Spacey, on his website years before mainstream media caught on. Obviously, there's no way to verify this is accurate, despite the Daily Beast believing so. Regardless, there was an interesting post made by NT in October of 2007 saying, "I don't even know how you define what list someone is when they are on some ensemble show watched by teens and preteens. So go with the above and make her a female. Make her pregnant, which is causing the producers to have a heart attack because they really don't need any more scandals. But wait, there's more. One of the producers, who was old enough to be her grandfather, shouldn't be having a heart attack because of shock, because he is the one who knocked her up. New boyfriends are being lined up as we speak." In December of 2007, just 2 months later, Jamie Lynn Spears announces her pregnancy.
What the fuck, bro?
Speaking of Crazy Days and Nights, visitors to the website are able to create accounts and comment.
What do y'all think about
posts,
that? Do you think
often
that's
attempting
Stan's
to guess which celebrity will
kid?
be exposed
I don't
next? One of these commenters,
know.
known as him, is believed to be Robert Downey Jr. Yeah, the Golden Avenger himself. Where the hell did this come from? Well, most people came to this conclusion because of what him revealed about himself through his posts, such as having a troubled youth and nearly destroying his Hollywood career. Him also listed
I did not
celebrities
know
he
that
was
about Robert Downey Jr., bro. That's
friends
crazy.
with, including Jon Favreau, Guy Ritchie, David Kelly, John Hughes, Natasha Gregson Wagner, Brian Lord, Tommy Lee Jones, Susanna Hoffs, Steve Martin, Rachel McAdams, Molly Ringwald, Miranda Cosgrove, and Susan Downey.
Wait, what's this
Robert
about?
Downey Jr.'s wife. It's worth noting that him's complete list of celebrities included some that people were not able to find a connection to Robert Downey Jr., such as Neil Patrick Harris and John Hamm. Of course, there is no way to know for certain who him is, but what we do know is that some time ago, he had this to say about Dan Schneider. "He's a monster, the worst predator alive. And if you wonder why nobody will confront or charge him, he's in charge of multiple hit shows for Nick, which rakes in oceans of money, tens of millions of dollars multiplied by many years and many shows, not to mention his merchandising royalties. So Viacom Nick warned him to cool it, then pay for his damn lawyers." What about the parents? No tweener parent who shoved their kid into the limelight from birth is going to cross him either, and risk career suicide and loss of revenue and residuals in future career. No matter how bad it fucks up the kids, especially if there's multiple kid actors in the family, and the kids' agents are complicit too, just ask the Spears family. A lot of settlements get paid out of Viacom's accounts. Finally, on March 26, 2018,
I wonder who wrote
Nickelodeon parted ways with Dan Schneider. Nickelodeon's official statement was, "Following many conversations together about next directions and future opportunities, Nickelodeon and our longtime creative partner Dan Schneider / Schneider's Bakery have agreed to not extend the current deal. Since several Schneider's Bakery projects are wrapping up, both sides have agreed that this is a natural time for Nickelodeon and Schneider's Bakery to pursue other opportunities and projects." Dan was given a payout of $7 million upon his departure. He and his wife sold their home and currently reside in Hidden Hills, California. It's unknown if Dan Schneider is working on any new projects. So, is Dan guilty? Did he really abuse his young child actors?
I don't know.
No one knows for certain. As you may have noticed, there is actually no concrete evidence against Dan Schneider. No celebrity has spoken out, and the ones who did have kept their identities private or are anonymous. So, for all we know, they could be lying.
Yeah.
The closest comes to us from Noah Monk, the actor who played Gibby on iCarly, from the official podcast. But even he was hesitant on defending Dan.
I was sort of, I mean, if that shit went on, I'm fucking like, that's devastating to me because I don't see him in that light, you know? So watching clips on YouTube and shit of that is like crazy. But I mean, the foot fetish shit is like, okay, bro, come on.
Yeah, bro, come on.
Like, I never really noticed that when I was 15 on the show, but of course, looking in retrospect, it's like, okay. No, I don't know. No, and I never observed, saw anything like that or got hints of that. So it's fucking, it might be baseless rumor, but I don't want to speak. Like, what if some shit comes out? I don't want to be like on record being like, no, you know, so I have no clue.
Yeah, bro, exactly.
These rumors and accusations have existed for a while, but nobody really said or did anything until Nickelodeon separated themselves from Dan. It was only then that people started growing concern. Why would Nickelodeon?
Guys, listen. I don't know. He's a weird dude in my opinion. But they could have just got rid of him because the shows he was making fucking sucked. That shit sucked. Henry Dangerous sucked too, bro. The last good show he made was like iCarly or some shit. Even Victorious was like, eh.
Fire one of their biggest producers just out of nowhere. Were they aware of something? Many people point to this event as evidence that Dan must be guilty, but I beg to differ. I think it's worth mentioning that Dan's shows have been seriously declining in ratings. iCarly's pilot episode got 4.1 million views. Their most viewed episode, I Saved Your Life, got 11.2 million views. And their least viewed episode, I Battle Chip, got 2.4 million views.
Damn.
Victorious's pilot episode got 5.7
not too bad
million.
for the least viewed.
Their most viewed episode, Begging on Your Knees, got 6.1 million. And their least viewed episode, The Hambone King, got 2.39 million, so not that bad. Skipping over Sam and Cat since that show never finished, Henry Danger's pilot episode got 1.94 million views. Their most viewed episode, Our Power, got 3.16 million. And their least viewed episode, Saturday Night Lies, got 1.05 million. Game Shaker's pilot episode got 1.98 million views. Their most viewed episode was the pilot episode.
Oh my god.
And their least viewed episode, Escape from Utah, got 0.52 million views.
Fuck.
It seems as if the Schneider style just wasn't working anymore.
Yeah, that's why they fired him.
Is it not more reasonable that Nickelodeon saw this trend and fired him because of it? I don't want to dismiss any of the people that have investigated and spoken out against him.
Like, make some good
with
shows,
this many
you
rumors and
motherfucker.
allegations surrounding Dan, it's just kind of hard to ignore it. And it's not like this hasn't happened before. In 2004, a man known as Jason Handy used his job at Nickelodeon to lure young child actors.
Bro, oh
he was
my
arrested
God.
and sentenced to 6 years in prison for molestation
What's wrong
and
with these
possession of
people?
child pornography. And
Oh
after serving
my-
his time, he was released and went straight back to working on Nickelodeon.
Straight back to working on Nickelodeon. Oh my god.
Hollywood is one of the most unsupervised, unrestricted industries in the world. The promise of fame and fortune can be so
we're gonna
alluring.
do a reaction on the shit that was going on behind the Wizard of Oz, because that was some crazy shit.
To young and upcoming actresses and actors that they and their families are just willing to do anything. Once you become a public figure,
Guys,
everything you say and do
Don't label yourself with the industry in Hollywood, because that's an evil ass place.
will be held
Telling
against you. Which is why if some actor or actress in the industry was abused as a child, they'd probably rather say nothing and not risk their career. You can't change the past, so might as well keep making money. I think the most we can definitively say about Dan is that, at the very least, he finds feet entertaining, and that's not a crime. But who knows? Maybe someday an actor or actress will speak out against Dan.
I don't know if that will happen, but I ain't gonna lie. Like, what do y'all think about this? Y'all think Dan Schneider's a weirdo? I don't think anyone's gonna come out and say anything, because they could risk, like Blame It on George said, like Sloan said, they could risk their career. I don't think that's gonna happen, bro. I really don't. Like, Amanda Bynes was like throwing subliminal messages, so I don't know. I really don't. Yeah, tell me what y'all think about this. I think Nickelodeon got rid of Dan Schneider because he was making horrible shows. Like, look at the ratings. iCarly, that shit was popping. That shit was, even the least viewed episode got like 2 million views. That's good, bro. That's really good. That's like prime Schneider's Bakery Dan Schneider. You go to Victorious, it's like, it's getting lower, but not as bad. And then Henry Danger, that shit sucked. Like, the viewers were going down the drain. And the Game Shakers, I believe that, I don't think no one was watching cable at that point in 2018 when that shit came out. Like, I don't know. But I think that's the reason they got rid of Dan Schneider. But who knows, man. I don't, like I said, I ain't gonna shut down accusations or nothing. But you can't trust everything. You gotta take shit with a grain of salt. You can't just say, oh, well, that's evidence. Like, no, bro. Like, there's no concrete evidence that he did all that shit. He does have a weird foot fetish, though. But we'll see y'all next time. I'm out. Oh, fuck.